Hello everyone. Now let's see the procedural chapter of import export procedure. In this chapter, the complete details are given for import procedure. Two stages will be there. The ship which brings the goods to India, or the aircraft which brings the goods to India. What is the procedure to be followed by them? The ship in charge, or the aircraft in charge, or the vehicle in charge, as you can say, the person in charge. What is the procedure to be followed by him? How the goods are unloaded onto the port, basically. And the second procedure will be how the importer comes and clears the goods, okay, for home consumption, and also for warehousing. But warehousing we'll see later on in the next chapter. In a chapter which will follow, the warehousing is a separate chapter. So right now we'll see the clearance for home consumption. So that is two parts of import and then two parts of export. So in export we'll see that how the exporter brings the goods to the port, what documents he has to file, what is the procedure for him, and then how the goods will be loaded onto the ship, and what is the procedure to be followed by the ship, and how it will leave India. Okay, so import procedure and export procedure. 2 points in import, 2 points in export. Very simple chapter. It's just procedural, so you don't have to apply much of your mind, if any. That's a joke. And just follow the process. Follow the process. That is the rule of learning this chapter. Okay, so let's see. First we'll see procedure to be followed by the carrier in case of import. Section 29 says that the person in charge of the ship or the aircraft entering India shall call or land at customs port, customs airport only, unless permitted by the board. Means first of all they have to arrive only at the customs ports or the customs airport, means at the customs station. They cannot go here and there. No. They have to come at the customs port or the customs airport unless permitted by the board. So board has the power to permit them to call at some other place also. These are called as designated places. Like if a crude oil tanker comes, so it will not come at the port, it will come at some place where the pipeline is fitted, so the crude can be pumped and straight away sent to the refinery. So such permissions can be granted in special circumstances. Then while arriving by land route, the vehicle should come by approved route to land customs station only. Obviously approved route is also there, that's we have seen in section 7. Approved route, that the road is also prescribed, like I gave you the example of Wagah border and Amritsar land customs station. So the route is defined, vehicle should come from that route and straight away to land customs station only. Then it can call or land at any other place only if compelled by accident, stress of weather, or other unavoidable cause. If there is a stress of weather, typhoon, hurricane, cyclone is there, then the ship, to protect itself, can call at some other place as well, some small port, or the aircrafts can land at some other airport which are not customs airport. Okay, they can land because of engine failure or a bird hit or due to some other reason. So it can be accident, stress of weather, or other unavoidable causes. They can call at the other place, but in such case they have to immediately report to the nearest customs office or the police station, as the case may be. Then person in charge shall not, without consent of the officer, permit any goods to be unloaded from, or any crew or passenger to depart from the vicinity. If it calls at this other place, then only if required, there is a medical emergency or something, then yes, so that is given here, health issues or safety issues are there, then you can allow the passengers and crew to depart or the goods to be taken out. Otherwise you cannot. The ship can come there for safety, but you cannot allow the passengers and crew to get out, nor the goods to be unloaded. But the exception is that if it is a reason of health or safety or preservation of life or property, if the ship is going to sink, then obviously you will take out the passengers. Then it is allowed. Preservation of life or property, or health or safety. If somebody suffers a heart attack, then yes, move him to the hospital, of course. There have been cases when passengers have suffered heart attacks while on board the flight, and then the flight has to land somewhere and rush the passenger to the hospital. Next is section 30, delivery of arrival manifest, import manifest or import report. The person in charge who will submit these documents, see, this is the first document, the arrival manifest or the import manifest. So the person in charge of the vessel, the aircraft or the vehicle, okay, person in charge of the vessel, the aircraft or the vehicle carrying imported goods or export goods. Carrying imported goods means bringing goods into India, or later on it is going to carry the export goods out of India. Or any other person who may be specified by the central government, means any other person can be agent. Agents are also allowed, CNF agents we call them. They are also allowed to file the manifest on behalf of the person in charge. So, or any other person as may be specified by the government shall. In case of vessel or aircraft, vessel means the ship. So, in case of ship or the aircraft, deliver to the proper officer an arrival manifest or import manifest by presenting electronically. They have to present it electronically prior to the arrival of the vessel or the aircraft. Prior to the arrival means before the arrival they have to file these documents. Okay, arrival manifest or import manifest. So if it is just coming empty handed, the ship is not bringing any import goods, but it is just coming here to load the export goods and to carry the export goods later on, means it is coming here just to pick up the export goods, then it has to file the arrival manifest. And if it is bringing imported goods into India for the purpose of unloading, then they have to file import manifest. Okay, and it has to be filed electronically and prior to the arrival into India. And in case of vehicle, the import report. So in case of vehicle means when the truck or the lorry or the railway comes into India, they have to file import report within 12 hours after its arrival in the customs station. So it has to be filed within 12 hours after arrival into customs station. So somebody brings a truck from Pakistan to India, so he will come down, the driver will rest for some time, and then he will go and file this import report. Okay, then the arrival manifest, import report, import manifest or report shall be in the prescribed form and manner of obviously, and there's a penalty for delay also of amount not exceeding 50,000 rupees. If there was no sufficient cause for the delay, the person in charge will be liable to this penalty up to 50,000, provided that the principal chief commissioner or the chief commissioner may, in cases where it is not feasible to deliver the arrival manifest or import manifest by presenting electronically, allow the same to be delivered in any other manner. So this is exception to the electronic form. If it is not feasible, then they will allow it to be presented in physical form also. And the person delivering the arrival manifest, import manifest or report shall at the foot thereof make and subscribe to declaration of truth. So at the foot will write whatever is stated above is true to the best of our knowledge and belief. And if the proper officer is satisfied that the arrival manifest, import manifest or report is in any way incorrect or incomplete, and that there was no fraudulent intention, he may permit it to be amended or supplemented. Simple. The officer will allow you to amend or supplement the manifest if it is found to be incorrect, but you had no fraudulent intention of doing so. Means you are not a smuggler, you have no fraudulent intent, you have written everything bona fide, but it is found to be incorrect, then you are allowed to amend or supplement the same. And then the brief rules are given. For vessel, it should arrive at the customs port, Document is arrival manifest or import manifest, as the case may be, depending upon why you are coming to India. Just to pick up the export goods, then arrival manifest. And if you are bringing imported goods also, then import manifest. Prior to arrival. For aircraft, it is they will come to customs airport and file the same documents prior to arrival. And for vehicle, they'll come at land customs station and file import report within 12 hours after arrival. Okay, so this is the brief which you have to remember. And contents are given there. Now these contents are given, but these are for general knowledge purpose. Different forms of IGM. It is also called as IGM. IGM stands for Import General Manifest. In short, we call it as Import Manifest, but the long form is Import General Manifest or Import Report. IR means Import Report. Has been prescribed for aircraft, vessels and vehicles, and they are prescribed by different regulations are there. Vessels regulations of 71, aircraft regulation of 76, and import report regulations of 76. Very old, but obviously they are amended from time to time. All the three regulations are substantially similar and provide for the following. The manifest report should be delivered in duplicate, means 2 copies, and should cover all the goods carried on the board. It should write, you have to write everything which is there on board the ship or the aircraft. The ones which are to be unloaded as well as the ones which are in transit to other place in India or to places outside India. Right? So they have to write everything. The manifest report has to be in 4 parts: general declaration, cargo declaration, vessel stores, the stores which are contained on the ship. Stores means the consumables, and a list of private property in possession of the master, officers and crew. They can have private properties, and they can have the radio set, the mobile phones, the this, that, whatever they have with them, which is their private property, that is also to be listed. And passenger manifest in case of aircrafts. For aircrafts, there has to be a passenger manifest. Passenger manifest means the whole list of passengers which are on board the aircraft. And even for ships, there is passenger manifest even for ships also, if the ship is carrying passengers, if it's a transport of passenger ship. Then the cargo list is categorized in the manifest or report in the following categories. The cargo list is the main list. Cargo to be landed, the cargo which is to be landed at this port. Then unaccompanied baggage, if the passenger has come before or is going to come afterwards, but his baggage is arriving and it is not with the passenger, passenger is not accompanying the baggage, so that is called as unaccompanied baggage. So that declaration is also to be given. Then goods to be transshipped, means goods which will be unloaded here, but they are not meant for clearance. They will be taken by another ship to some other place. So they are called as goods to be transshipped. So they will be unloaded but not cleared at this port. So this chapter will see transshipment, transit and transshipment of goods. So transshipment means the goods will be unloaded by this particular ship, but they will be taken board by another ship and taken to some other place in India or maybe outside India. So these goods have to be mentioned as transshipped goods. Then same bottom or retention cargo. Now same bottom cargo means the transit goods. The goods which are not to be unloaded. They will stay on board the ship and they will be taken to some other place in India or maybe outside India. So they are called as transit goods. They are mentioned as same bottom or retention cargo. Means this is not to be unloaded. So first 3 are to be unloaded and the 4th one is not to be unloaded. Then in the cargo declaration there should be separate mention about arms, ammunitions, explosives, narcotics, if you are carrying narcotics, dangerous drugs, gold, silver. There has to be separate mention of these items. Then this declaration should be given irrespective of whether these are for landing or for transshipment or for being carried as same bottom cargo. Whatever they are, they have to be mentioned separately. And the details about because these are like prohibited goods na, so they have to be mentioned separately. And sometimes they may be allowed, like controlled narcotic drugs and substances are allowed to be imported also. They are used in medicine industry, pharmaceutical industry, so there has to be license and everything. So government will check it, the customs officer will properly scrutinize and check every document and then allow the import. So therefore they have to be mentioned separately. Then details about the above should be given in separate sheets and should be set out in order of port of loading. Port of loading must also be mentioned. Like if the ship is coming from after connecting to 10 different ports, finally it is coming to India. So it has to mention that item A is carried from New York port, item B carried from Budapest, item 3 carried from Falana, item D carried from here and there and this and that. Then the person delivering the import manifesto report should subscribe in the declaration as to the truth of its contents. Means finally at the bottom it will be written, I so and so Jack Sparrow, the captain of the ship, hereby certify that the things stated above are true to the best of my knowledge and belief, and then your signature, Jack Sparrow. Then the general declaration, the first point was general declaration, will give particulars about name of the vessel, nationality, nationality means where does the ship belong to, tonnage, tonnage means its certificate to carry goods. This you will see in income tax also, tonnage tax. So tonnage means the passing certificate that is given to the ship. Like we have road transport authorities registering our vehicles. Our car is registered, we get a RC book, registration certificate, which mentions the load and everything, the kilogram. Similarly, the ships are registered with the shipping authorities of different countries, and they give the tonnage capacity, that how much tonnage is allowed to be carried by the ship. So that is called as tonnage. The name of the shipping line, like we have Qatar Roadways, so likewise you will be having a shipping line, so you mention that. Last port of call, before entering India, where did the ship called, the last port? So it is coming from Dubai, so we will mention it is coming from Dubai. Port of arrival, obviously the port at which you have arrived, and the date and time of arrival, when did you arrive. Name of the master, Jack Sparrow. Nationality of the master, Caribbean islands. Name and address of the local steamer or shipping agent. If you have any steamer or local agent here, shipping agent, his name. Then ports called during the present voyage. So we'll mention the last call separately, and then how many ports we had called before arriving here. So 10 ports. We'll mention all the 10 names from New York to Dubai. The number of crew, how many crew are there? The people who work on board the ship are called as crew. Number of passengers, if any. And the following documents are to be enclosed with the general declaration: cargo declaration, store list, private property list, crew list, passenger list, and maritime declaration of health. Health of the ship, not health of the Jack Sparrow. Health of the ship or the health of the aircraft. So engineers have to certify that every time that ship is in a good condition. Then the passenger and crew manifest. So this section deals with that. So it is already contained in that declaration list, but the section is this 30A. Passenger and crew arrival manifest and passenger name record information. The person in charge of the conveyance that enters India from any place outside India, or any other person. Any other person means the agents in India, the shipping agent, as may be specified by the government by notification in the official gazette, shall deliver to the proper officer. Shall deliver the passenger and crew arrival manifest before arrival. Before, underline before, in case of aircraft or a vessel, and upon arrival in case of vehicle. So these are for the passenger vehicles basically. If any passenger vehicle is coming from say Pakistan, a bus, that bus service which goes on. So bus arrives at the border, so it arrives at the customs station. As soon as it arrives there, the conductor will go and give this whole list of passengers. And in case of aircraft and vessel, it has to be submitted before arrival. Now everything is done electronically, so what happens is that as soon as the flight takes off from London airport and it is going to arrive in Bombay, so the airline already knows the whole list of passengers now. They have the ticket, so they know that who is boarding. And you know, when you board any aircraft, if you have traveled any time by aircraft, you know that when you board, you have to scan your boarding pass. It means that you are now boarding. So it is one thing that you have purchased a ticket. Every person who buys ticket does not travel. Finally, the people who are traveling are recorded by their boarding cards. Whoever has taken the boarding card and has scanned it finally while boarding the aircraft. Or in earlier days, they used to tear off that portion of your boarding card. Still in some airports that is done, but normally now everyone scans it. Everything has become electronic. So the airline knows how many people are really traveling on this aircraft. So when they know it, they immediately submit electronic manifest with the Department of Customs. So the airline has to immediately send it to India, the whole list. So before the airline touches India, the list is already there with the Customs Department. Okay, so they have to file before arrival. So in case of aircraft or vessel, it has to be filed before arrival. In case of vehicle, means bus service and all, it can be submitted on arrival also. Okay, and the passenger name record information of arriving passengers. So it will contain the whole list of passengers also. In such form, so there is a prescribed form for that, containing such particulars and in such manner and within such time as may be prescribed. Then where the passenger and crew arrival manifest or the name record information or any part thereof is not delivered to the officer within the prescribed time, and if the officer is satisfied that there was no sufficient cause, for the delay, still you did not submit, then you are liable to penalty not exceeding 50,000 rupees as may be prescribed. And passenger name record information is also defined there, means the records prepared by the operator of the aircraft like Indigo Airlines or Jet or Indian Airlines or the foreign airlines which are operating in India, or vessel or vehicle or his authorized agent for each journey booked by or on behalf of any passenger. So that is what the list of passengers who are traveling on board, they know the details. Okay, so once these manifests are filed, in case of goods import, the import manifest, and in case of passenger imports, I mean to say passengers coming to India, the passenger manifest. Then the officer will check the goods. In case of goods, officer will check the goods whether the manifest is properly filed or not. He has the power to go on board the ship also and verify the goods physically, and after he is satisfied that the manifest is properly filed, he will give the permission for unloading. That permission for unloading is called as entry inwards. Entry inwards. Andar aao. Get in. So says the proper officer, after verifying the import manifest, grants entry inward to such vessel. The master of the vessel shall not permit the unloading of any imported goods until the entry inward is granted. Now important point that this concept of entry inward, the permission, it is a permission. Basically, permission to dock, you can say, for unloading. This is only in case of vessels, only for vessels. It is not applicable to vehicle, it is not applicable to aircrafts. Now just imagine that the aircraft is there flying, it is trying to land on the airport, it is there on top. And how will our officer give entry inward? How will a flag? The officer will just show them a flag, green flag, that okay, come down. No, entry inward cannot be granted. But in case of ship, it can be granted. The ship has arrived, the officer will go on board, check everything, and then he can give a written entry inward. So remember this, it is only for vessel, not for aircrafts. Aircraft can straight away land. Okay, and the master of the vessel shall not permit unloading. There cannot be any unloading unless this entry inward is granted. And then it is explained what is entry inward. It is a term used to denote colloquially that the ship's entry papers like arrival report, manifest, etc. have been received and they have been found to be in order. The person in charge of the conveyance can commence further import operations, namely unloading of the cargo and disembarking of the passengers. So basically it is unloading permission, that now you can unload the goods. The overt action for this permission is assigning a rotation number. How will you know that entry inward is granted? They assign you a rotation number, that is a serial number for the conveyance. And all the documents and papers relating to imports by this conveyance will be docketed and processed under this rotation number. So you will get a rotation number and all your documents, everything, that means a complete file of documents will be under this number. And date of entry inward is the date on which the vessel would be vessel found a berthing place for discharge of cargo. There is no provision requiring grant of entry inward forthwith, nor a duty cast on the customs officer to forthwith grant entry inward when IGM is presented. Means there is no duty that it should be given immediately. Forthwith means immediately. There is no such requirement. They can take their time. The officers can take their time to give entry inwards. So there is no necessity that it should be given immediately on import manifest being filed. Section 31(2) provides that entry inward shall not be given until the import manifest has been delivered to the officer and the officer is satisfied that a valid reason is given for not delivering it. Means it is given or he is satisfied the valid reason for not giving it. Grant of entry inwards is an acknowledgement of the fact that Customs Department is ready to supervise the unloading of the cargo and is prepared to assess the goods to duty as and when the concerned importer comes forward to clear the imported goods. He has to file bill of entry and then the assessment will be done. But they are ready. The Customs Office is now ready to handle this cargo. Nothing in this section shall apply to unloading of baggage. Now this is an exception. Okay, this you have to remember. Rest of it was explanation part, but this is again technical part. That entry inward means this permission for unloading. Entry inward is permission for unloading basically, and permission for supervision and assessment and all. This does not apply, shall not apply. So it says nothing in this section shall apply to unloading of baggage accompanying a passenger or a member of the crew, mail bags, animals, perishable goods and hazardous goods. Means as soon as the ship arrives, these things can be unloaded immediately. Baggage, passengers can unload, can disembark, so they can take their baggage. Mail bags, which will go to the post office situated in the customs area, called as foreign post office. We'll see a separate chapter for that, how the postal bags are cleared. Then animals can't wait. If you have imported animals for zoo, animals will stay on the ship till entry inward is granted. No, they will move. All the dinosaurs and elephants and all that you have imported can move. Perishable goods, if we wait for the permission to come, the perishable goods will perish, so don't let them perish, remove them immediately. And hazardous goods means like chemicals and all which can catch fire easily, so they have to be immediately transported and shifted to safe place. Then the provision is in two parts. One which is full satisfaction that the ship's papers are in order and the import. The second part relates to situation where the IGM import is not complete. This can be cured with a given time. The required documents and all information can be obtained and given within a short time. An indemnity bond undertaking is taken from the master of the vessel or local agent to provide the requisite documents and or material within the prescribed time, and the entry inward is then granted. This is all procedure. Though the master of the vessel cannot allow the goods to be unloaded until the grant of entry inwards, subsection 3 provides that this provision is not applicable to these items: baggage, mail bags, animals, perishable goods and hazardous goods. they can be unloaded immediately. And entry inverse date is crucial for the calculation of applicable rate of duty. This we have seen. If the bill is filed, if the bill of entry has been filed in advance, then entry inwards is considered as the date for seeing the rate of duty, right? So that point is given there. Okay, now entry inward is granted. Entry inward is granted, so the goods will be now unloaded. So now let's move on. Section 32 says, goods not to be unloaded unless mentioned in import manifest. Means only those goods can be unloaded which have been mentioned in import manifest or import report as for unloading, and not mentioned as same bottom cargo. If they are mentioned as same bottom cargo, then they cannot be unloaded. So import report or the manifest must mention these goods as for unloading. Only those goods can be unloaded. So that is a very simple section. That without permission of the officer, the imported goods cannot be unloaded unless they are mentioned in the import general manifest for being unloaded at that customs station. The mention of any consignment in the ship, aircraft's manifest or conveyance cargo list is a proof of the genuine nature of the imported goods. If the goods are not mentioned in the manifest or report delivered to the officer at the customs airport or station, there is every reason to believe that the goods were intended to be smuggled into India. If they are not mentioned in the import manifest, means your intention is of smuggling, either without payment of duty or in contravention of prohibition in force. On the other hand, if the full particulars of the import consignment are timely given in the manifest or report, prima facie there is every reason to believe that it is a straightforward transaction. It is in this perspective that Section 32 of the Act has stipulated the above restriction. This is the reason for this section. Very simple. Then unloading, loading to take place in customs area only. We have seen that in every customs port or airport there is an area designated called as customs area. So all the unloading has to take place in this area because the goods will be non-duty paid right now. So all non-duty paid goods will be kept inside the customs area only. But proper officer has the power to give permission otherwise, means for goods to be unloaded in other place as well. Like I gave example of that oil, crude oil importation. Now there is no customs area there. It will directly go by pipeline to pumped and piped to the refinery directly. So those exceptions are there. Otherwise, normally when the ship comes to a customs port, the unloading must take place inside the customs area. So that's again very simple. Then supervision, all the unloading must take place in supervision of the officer. Again exception is there. Exception is the CBIC nowadays may by notification in the official gazette give general permission, and the proper officer, that is the officer in charge at that port, may give in a particular case permission, that is called a special permission, for goods or class of goods to be unloaded or loaded without permission, without supervision. Like if there is some consignment which is coming in from Russia, and it is of normally maybe government imports, maybe imported by such person who has not violated any law for any time before, and the department has complete faith on him that all the goods will be properly imported on payment of duty, then they can give special permission for the unloading without supervision. Now this is to write in the exam, okay? But you know when the permission will be granted without supervision? In reality, when there is smuggling going on, the officer knows that these goods are smuggled goods, and the person who is smuggling them is in hands with the officer. He has satisfied the officer. Then the officer will give special permission for goods to be unloaded without supervision, so that no officer catches the goods. That is the reality, for the movie sake. But in exam don't write such things, huh? Okay, so CBC can give general permission like coal import is taking place, so it is in bulk quantity and it will just take place. Who will take care? Does the officer have enough time to sit there and supervise full day? No. General permissions can be granted. An officer has the power to give special permission in each case. Okay. Then it says in almost all the major ports, customs officers are deployed at the wharfs and the berths where the goods are imported or exported. These officers supervise all the loading and unloading and shipping operations, obviously. Then there is a concept of boat note. Big ships that come to India, big ships, they cannot come till the actual port, that is on the berth, because they are huge in size and there are various problems, like there is a turning problem. If it comes here, then it cannot turn, it needs space to turn, and it cannot go in a reverse gear. There is no reverse gear in ships. So there are various problems. Then there is shallow water, and if there is a low tide, the ship can hit the bottom, the rocks, and it can get damaged and so on and so forth. There are various problems. So in such situations, what happens is that the ship will stand in the waters somewhere inside the sea, and permission will be taken from the proper officer, and after taking permission, we'll bring the small boats up to the ship, unload the goods from the main ship to these boats or barges, they are also called as barges, and then these boats or barges will bring them onto the port. So this whole process is called as boat note. Boat note means permission. Note means permission for the goods to be unloaded from the main ship to the boats, the small boats, for being brought to customs area. And similarly, the export goods will have a reverse process. The export goods will be first put on these small boats, then the boats will carry it to the main ship, and then it will be uploaded on the main ship. So this is called as boat note. See what it says. There are certain customs ports like Pondicherry, now it is called as Puducherry, Tuticorin, Mangalore, Saurashtra, where the ships cannot come to the shore for unloading or loading because they are small ports. In these places, the cargo is ferried from the ships anchored at mid-sea to the port in boats, small boats, otherwise known as lighters. Even in other ports like Calcutta, Bombay, Madras, Cochin, etc., not all ships arriving at the port get a berth. There is a problem of what we can say, the number of berths also. Every coming ship will not get a berth because of heavy load of shipping going on. There may not be any space available. They have to wait for some time before they get allotment of berth. At times the ships have tight itinerary. They have to leave. In such cases, the import cargo is taken from the ship to the shore, and the export cargo is taken from the shore to the ship in boats. Understood? So this is the background of it. Section 35 stipulates that no imported goods shall be waterborne. Now waterborne means bringing the goods from the ship to the boat, transferring the goods from the ship to the boat or from the boat to the ship. That is called waterborne, means coming on water, goods to come on water. For being loaded in any vessel, and no export goods shall which are not accompanied by a shipping bill shall be waterborne for being shipped unless the goods are accompanied by a boat note in the prescribed form. So this is section 35. It says that if you want to take the goods from the main ship to the boat, or from the boat, means you want to carry the goods on the boat to be taken to the ship, you have to have permission from the proper officer, and this permission from the proper officer is called as boat note. So boat note is nothing but permission. However, the board may, again exceptions are there, the board may by general notification give general permission, and the proper officer may give permission in particular case, that is special permission, for any goods or any class of goods to be waterborne without being accompanied by a boat note. So these permissions can be granted. Now the permission is granted for the boat operators who are licensed boat operators. So this is a business by itself, because big ships come in and these are small boat operators at the port who take license from the department and they operate their boats, and their work is this, to bring the goods from the main ship to the port and from the port to the main ship. It is their work. So they are given general permission. So it says at present this exemption is in operation in Chennai port for both imports exports and Kolkata port for exports only. This is the general permission which has been given by the board. And then there are boat note regulations also. The whole procedure for obtaining a boat note. Let's see. These regulations specify that normally the boat note should be issued by the proper officer. Means permission has to be given by the proper officer. However, in special case, the principal commissioner or the commissioner may authorize an exporter or his authorized agent to issue a boat note. May authorize an exporter. Exporters themselves will be authorized, or his agent to issue a boat note. Every person who is authorized by the PCOC shall maintain proper account of boat notes issued by him and furnish to the officer such information as may be specified by the PCOC. So they have to maintain proper accounts and submit the information from time to time. Boat notes should be of such dimension and color as in prescribed forms. The whole format is defined and color is also defined. The boat note should be in duplicate and machine numbered, and separate forms are prescribed for export cargo, import cargo and transshipment cargo. Even the colors will be different. Okay, the format will be different and the colors will also be different. The next is restriction on unloading and loading of goods on holidays. Now comes the working hours. Section 36 says that all loading and unloading should take place during the working hours of the customs department. Means it cannot be done on a holiday or after the working hours. So if the customs department is working from say 10 to 6, all loading and unloading must take place within this time. Then the port will be locked. Everyone has to move out. Next day come back at 10 o'clock. The work will start. And nothing will happen on holidays. So if you go to a port on Sunday, you will not find a single soul except some birds flying here and there. Okay. But if you want to unload at night because the ship has to leave, there is urgency, then you have to take permission from the proper officer on payment of prescribed fees for allowing the unloading to take place after the business hours, that is working hours of the customs department. So that is given there. Very simple. In fact, no need to read also, you know. It cannot take place on Sunday or a public holiday or after the business hours. However, on payment of prescribed fees, you can do it. And again, this section is also not applicable to baggage accompanying a passenger, means accompanied baggage and mail bags. So if a ship say comes to the port on Sunday, the passengers can leave. Passengers will not wait till Monday. Na? Cargo may wait till Monday, but passengers will not wait. So passengers can go and they can take their baggages also. And mail bags can also be unloaded without any permission, without any fees. Then power to board conveyances. Interesting. The officer has the power to board any conveyance and check the goods and all. This is obviously the good power. So it says the officer may at any time board any conveyance carrying imported goods or export goods and may remain on such conveyance for such period as he considers necessary. So they can go on board the ship and stay there, enjoy the ship till the time they think it necessary. And then 38 is relating to it. It says power to require production of documents and ask questions. So when they go on board or even otherwise, they can ask the person in charge of the conveyance any question or ask for documents and information. This is very interesting. They can ask any questions, means physical what we can say, the examination. They can examine the person in charge and they can call for documents and information. And that ship in charge has to give these documents and information and answer the questions. Very simple. Then the flow pattern is given in short if the question comes in exam. So you'll write the short version if the whole process comes, because you cannot write all these sections in detail. Otherwise, we'll write only one question in 3 hours. So it says, see, the vessel is escorted into the harbor by the pilot vessel of the port. Escorted into, because the propellers of the main ship cannot function in shallow waters. So its engine stops there, and then it is pulled by the pilot vessel. So that is called as escorted. Escorted or pulled, you can say. After entering the harbor, the vessel is brought to the particular quay or berth, which is called as a berth or anchored, where it will be berthed and anchored. The health department officials and police officials go on board the vessel. The health officials check whether the vessel has called during the voyage at any port which is susceptible to epidemic diseases. Now this is also possible, that the ship is coming from Africa and it may carry viruses which will cause yellow fever and all in India. So they will do, health officials will first go there, check where has the ship come from. Has it gone to such ports which are susceptible to such epidemic diseases? And if so, whether the ship has been cleared by the quarantine authorities. Quarantine means to keep it aside for some time. So if they find that some virus is there, they will quarantine the ship, means make this ship stand in the waters for some number of days, during which that virus is what we can say active. So if the virus is active for say 20 days, then that ship will be quarantined for 20 days or maybe 30 days, and then it will be allowed to come. So even if any viruses were there, they will collapse, they will end, they will die. Then where any crew or passenger in the vessel has any contagious or epidemic or contagious disease, that will be checked. This is all paper, nothing is done in practical. Then whether the vessel or the crew or passenger requires to be quarantined. If he is carrying such disease, he can be quarantined. Like you must have heard that when that bird flu had come, people coming in from foreign countries were checked. So this happens when the need arises. Like there was a virus in Ebola virus in Africa had come up, then bird flu was there, and such epidemic. Whenever these epidemics arise, and if people are coming from that country to India, then they will be checked at the time of coming in, and if any symptoms are found, they will be immediately quarantined. Quarantine means put behind bars of a medical room, not jail. So they will be quarantined for some number of days. If the disease happens, then they will be treated there, and only after getting okay they will be allowed to enter India. And if the disease doesn't happen, if they get well, then they will be allowed to enter India. So they will be quarantined for a specific number of days. Then whether the vessel carries any cargo contaminated by such epidemic diseases affecting the health of people or crop, etc. So all the health checkup will be done. Then the immigration authorities check whether the ship has proper documents to call at Indian port. Then the customs officer who boards the vessel on its arrival, boards, section 37 we have seen, alongside the health and police officials, collects the arrival report with its supporting papers from the master of the vessel, scrutinizes the arrival report for details of import cargo, same bottom cargo, and arms, ammunition, explosive, dangerous goods, all the things. Arrival report means the same, import manifest. And a proper officer, proper clearance from the last port of call, health certificate, etc. Then calls for necessary information documents from the master and so on and so forth, and from the ship's doctor. If satisfied, collects the arrival report and the import manifest if it has not been filed, and sends these papers to customs house. If entry has had been given by the proper officer, allows the unloading to commence. Entry means entry inward. If it is granted, then he will allow the unloading. Once the unloading of the cargo starts, supervises and checks whether the landing is done by the proper tally maintained by steamer agents, tally clerks, and port trust's tally clerks. Port trust means the custodian, and steamer agent means the person who is unloading the goods. So both the records will be checked by him. The record which is kept by the steamer agent as to how much goods have been unloaded, and the port trust records, that is how much goods they have got in their custody, how much they received. So all this will be checked with import manifest. and everything should tally. Import manifest has said that 20,000 tons is to be unloaded. Steamer agent says that only 16,000 ton is unloaded, and the custodian says I have received only 12,000 tons. So how is this possible? Then the matter will be investigated. They should all tally, and keeps a general surveillance to ensure that the goods are not illicitly removed from the ship or the storage godowns. That is to prevent smuggling. So all these points are there, general knowledge. So this is one part, the ship in charge part. Now the goods are unloaded onto the port, and they have been received in custody by the custodian, that is Port Trust Authority, the Airport Authority, as the case may be. So now let's see what the importer has to do. So interval takes place in the movie. After interval, let's commence again. The story commences. Now the importer will come in his Mercedes Benz to the port to file the import manifest. Huh? No, he will file bill of entry. Yes, you are right. So he'll file a bill of entry. And as you know, that bill of entry can be of two types. If he wants to remove the goods immediately, then he will file bill of entry for home consumption. And if he wants to store the goods in warehouse for some time and thereafter clear, then he will file bill of entry for warehousing. That is also called as inbound bill of entry. Okay. Then assessment will be done as per section 17 or 18 on both the cases. 17 means final assessment, 18 means provisional assessment. After assessment, the duty has to be paid immediately, and after payment, the goods will be allowed to be cleared if it is for home consumption. If it is for warehousing, then instead of payment of duty, you have to file a bond. Okay, and after filing bond, the goods will be allowed to be stored in the warehouse. This will be discussed in warehousing procedure. There is a separate chapter for that. So right now we'll discuss about home consumption. So see, it says the procedures are given in 45 to 49 sections, and they are as follows. And they are not applicable to baggage goods imported exported by post. Postal goods and baggage are dealt with separately. We'll see a separate chapter for that. So this is basically for cargo. Okay, cargo clearance. So first is section 45 given there, custody. Who takes the custody of goods? The port authority or the airport authorities, which are established by the government itself. So that is given there. That all imported goods other than baggage and post unloaded in a customs area shall remain in the custody of a person approved by the commissioner until they are cleared for home consumption or warehoused or transshipped. Three things can be done. Either they are removed for home consumption, or they are warehoused, put in a warehouse, or transshipped means taken to some other port. You can put the goods onto another ship and take it to another port. Now who is the custodian? So it is given there that in case of custom ports, the custodian is the port trust, that is port trust authority or company managing a private wharf. Small ports are called as wharfs. Then customs airport will be Airport Authority of India. A railway station will be the station master, and inland container depots are there. So Container Corporation of India, they are appointed as custodians. Container Corporation of India for ICDs. Now it is privatized also. Then duties of custodian: shall keep a record of such goods and send a copy to the proper officer. Shall not permit such goods to be removed from the customs area or otherwise dealt with except in accordance with permission of the officer. And in pursuance of this responsibility, the custodian is required to tally the particulars of goods landed by the vessel and send a report known as out-turn statement. This is the name of the report, called as out-turn statement, to the customs authorities. This enables the customs authorities to check whether all goods manifested means which were given in the manifest for landing in a particular place place have actually been landed. As I told you just now, that manifest says 20,000 tons and this outturn statement says 16,000 tons received. So there is a mismatch. That shouldn't happen, because in that case, where has the 4,000 gone? Smuggled. So it will be investigated. So manifest and this statement should match, should tally. And in case the goods are not so landed, the action is taken against the carriers, obviously. Then liability for pilferage is on the custodian. If any pilferage takes place after landing, suppose all 20,000 tons have landed, but when the importer comes and files the bill of entry and the inspection is done, at the time if the goods are found short, pilferage has taken place, then who is liable to pay duty on pilfered goods? Because importer will get remission under section 13. Remember, importer gets remission under section 13. So then who will pay this tax? Government has lost the tax. So this port authority or the airport authority, that is the custodian, will be liable to pay tax. So up till now we have seen that the goods have come to India, they have been unloaded and they have been taken in the custody by the custodian under section 45. Now the scene changes. Now let's see how the importer will come and clear the goods. So this I have been telling you since time immemorial, that importer has to clear the goods by filing a bill of entry, right? We are seeing the name of this document since long, bill of entry. Now the actual section comes, section 46. So let's see in this section that how the bill of entry is filed, okay, and how you have to assess the duty. So along with this section you have to also read section 17 and 18 regarding self-assessment. Remember, self-assessment under section 17 we had seen, and then if there is some error, then the officer will rectify it and make a reassessment. And then section 18 we had seen provisional assessment of duty. So assessment under 17 or 18 which is there is done on the basis of this bill of entry. So this is the base document. So therefore they have to be read together. Okay. So let's see. The importer of any goods other than intended for transit or transshipment. If they are for transit or transshipment, then you don't have to file any document. Means you don't have to file bill of entry. Okay. Transit means where the goods will go in the same vessel to some other place. Transshipment means one ship will unload those goods into one port and then the other vessel will take it to another port. But there will be no clearance at this port. So therefore there is no need for bill of entry. So in both of these cases no bill of entry. In all the other cases you need a bill of entry. Make entry thereof by presenting electronically on the customs automated system to the officer a bill of entry for home consumption or warehousing in such manner and form as may be prescribed. So this we have been seeing since long. You have to present a bill of entry. Bill of entry basically means a document for entering the goods into India. So this is the bill which I am filing for entering. Purpose is to enter the goods into India on payment of duty. So either it can be bill of entry for home consumption if I want immediate clearance, or if I want to warehouse right now and then later on we'll clear the goods, then we'll file bill of entry for warehousing. Means there can be two bills, bill of entry for home consumption or bill of entry for warehousing. This bill of entry for warehousing is also called as in bond bill of entry. In bond because right now we will not pay the duty, we will just file bond. We will file a bond and then the goods will be stored in the warehouse. And then after some time, when we want to clear the goods from the warehouse, we will file another bill of entry that will be called as ex bond bill of entry, on which the duty will be paid and then the goods will be cleared. Okay. So in warehousing there are two bills, in bond, ex bond. Then provided that the PC, principal commissioner or commissioner, in cases where it is not feasible, to present electronically, may allow in any other manner, means physical entry can also be made. That's okay. They write such provisos to avoid practical difficulties. Then there are three types of bills. Form 1 for home consumption, it is in white color. Then into bond, also called as in short in bond, that is for warehousing, yellow color. And then ex bond, that is when you will clear the goods from the warehouse. So at that time you will use the green color bill of entry. White, yellow, green. Then the bill of entry should be presented in quadruplicate. Quadruplicate means 4 copies normally. So the first copy is called as the original, meant for customs authorities for assessment and collection of duty. So that will go to the custom department. The duplicate is intended as an authority to the custodian of the cargo to release cargo to the importer from his custody. So this copy will give to the, after clearance takes place, after the order is received, means the bill of entry is passed, then we will hand over the second copy to custodian for taking delivery. Triplicate is for our own record of the importer. And the fourth copy, that is quadruplicate, will be used for clearance purposes, remittance purposes, for money transfer purpose. So it will be presented to the bank or Rabbi for the purpose, Rabbi means RBI, for the purpose of making remittance for imported goods. Ultimately we have to pay for the goods also, na? So the money clearance will take place only on submission of this fourth copy. And a bill of entry shall include all the goods mentioned in the bill of lading or other receipt given by the carrier to the consigner. Bill of lading is document of title. So whatever goods are mentioned in documents of title must be contained in the bill of entry. Then time for filing the bill of entry. When do you file the bill of entry? Very important point. Question will come on this. Okay. So there are two bills, the normal and the advance bill. So normal bill is filed before the end of the next day following the day, excluding holiday, on which the aircraft or the vessel or vehicle carrying the goods arrives at a customs station at which such goods are to be cleared. For home consumption or warehousing. Means in case of transshipment, when the goods come from Dubai and land in Bombay, but they are not to be cleared there. From Bombay we will take it to Chennai, and from Chennai we will clear. So bill of entry is to be filed at Chennai, next day after arrival in Chennai. Okay. So very next day you have to file the bill of entry. So if the ship is arriving on say 23rd of March, we'll have to file it on 24th of March. But if there is a public holiday, then you get one more day. Okay. So excluding holidays. Means if the ship is arriving on Saturday, then how can we go and file on Sunday? There's a holiday. So okay, we'll go and file on Monday. So before the end of the next day, following the day on which the ship or the aircraft or the vehicle arrives. Okay. And the payment also, that we'll see next section 47. Payment will have to be made accordingly. Means payment due date, payment of tax, self-assessed, is the same as the date of filing the bill of entry. Means I have to pay the tax as well as file the bill on the next day itself. Simple. Then late filing fee is there. That if the bill of entry is not presented within the time, means on the next day, very next day, and the officer is satisfied that there was no sufficient cause for the delay. You had no sufficient cause. You said that you were sleeping. Sleep is not a sufficient cause. Then the importer shall pay such charges for late presentation as may be prescribed. So the government will make the rules and prescribe the late charges. Then advance bill. So one is the normal bill which is presented on the next day. Second is advance bill. So what is advance? That if you file the bill of entry any time before arrival of the vessel or the aircraft or the vehicle, then that is called as advance. Till what time you can present it? Means how much in advance? Up to 30 days in advance. So if you know that your ship is going to arrive in the next 10-15 days, you go and file your advance bill of entry. What is the advantage of that? Advantage is that the assessing officer will get enough time to make assessment. Not physical assessment, physical verification, but at least the valuation part, the rate of duty part, all those things can be done now. The appraisement can be done, and as soon as the goods arrive, he can check the goods, and if everything is found correct, he can immediately allow us clearance of goods. So that is advantage of filing advance bill of entry. Early clearance, fast clearance. So it says a bill of entry may be presented at any time not exceeding 30 days prior to the expected arrival of the aircraft, vessel or vehicle by which the goods have been shipped for importation into India. However, if the vessel or the aircraft or vehicle does not arrive within 30 days, now this may happen that it may not arrive, then what? Then this bill will be defunct. Means this bill will become invalid. It will become void. It becomes void, and the importer is then required to present a fresh bill of entry for the same goods later on, either advance or normal as he wishes. Then verification. The importer shall make and subscribe to declaration of truth, verification statement. I so and so hereby certify that the statements written above are true to the best of my knowledge and belief. So that you have to write declaration of truth, also called as verification. Then additional requirements. The importer who presents the bill of entry shall ensure the following, namely the accuracy and completeness of the information given therein. Obviously you are responsible for that, for the accuracy and completeness. Then authenticity and validity of any document supporting it, like invoices and all. So you have to authenticate and validate those documents, and if they are found to be false later on, then you will be punished. And compliance with restrictions or prohibitions, if any, relating to goods under this act. Means you have to also certify that whatever goods you are importing are not prohibited goods. So you have to see the list of prohibited goods and see that your goods do not fall in that list. Then examination of goods and deposit in warehouse. On a request made, now this is an interesting part. It says that when the goods have arrived into India, and if we, the importer, are unable to ascertain the nature of goods. Now it may happen like I have a branch in Singapore. They have sent me a consignment, but I don't know what is included in that consignment. I have not got any documents. I have not received any documents up till now, but I have to file the bill of entry. So how will I file the bill? It's not possible. So I'll ask the officer that, look, I don't have the documents. I have not received them yet. But if you allow me to open this box, open this consignment and see what it is, I can make my bill of entry. Then I'll be able to write the description of goods and all, right? So that is one thing you can do. You can examine the goods. You can examine the goods physically in presence of the officer, of course. Or even if that will not suffice, then you can ask the officer to allow you to put the goods in a warehouse without warehousing the same. Means my intention is not to warehouse the goods, but I just want to temporarily, for some duration, keep the goods in warehouse. Because if I don't file the bill of entry here on time, then first of all penalty will apply. Secondly, demurrage charges will apply. The port authorities will charge demurrage from me. So therefore, to avoid that, I can put my goods in warehouse, but I don't want to follow the warehousing procedure. I am not going to file a bill of entry here and then again at the warehouse and then clear the goods. No, my intention is not to warehouse, but I just want to store them for some duration, temporarily. Then that can also be allowed. So that is called as warehousing without warehousing. Means to put the goods in warehouse but without following the warehousing procedure. Okay. So see, these 2 points are given here. On a request made by the importer for want of full information, means lack of full information required for making assessment, the officer may permit him prior to filing bill of entry. See, prior to filing bill of entry, to examine the goods in presence of the officer, or to deposit the goods in a public warehouse without warehousing the same. Okay, underline public warehouse also. So these goods can be kept only in public warehouses, not in private warehouses. Okay. And lastly, there is a concept of substitution of bill. Substitution means if I have filed a bill of entry for home consumption, then before passing of the order of home consumption, I can convert it into bill of entry for warehousing. If my intention changes, I want to warehouse the goods now, so no problem. But before order is passed, order of clearance should not be passed. Before that, we can do it. Or reverse, I have filed the bill of entry for warehousing, but before the order of warehousing is given, I can convert it into home consumption bill of entry. So that is called a substitution of bill. And there should not be any fraudulent intention of the importer, then it will be allowed. So it says the proper officer is satisfied that the interests of the revenue are not prejudicially affected and that there was no fraudulent intention. He may permit substitution of bill of entry for home consumption for a bill of entry for warehousing or vice versa. Okay, simple. Then you have notification number 36 by 2018 dated 11th of May 2018 for electronic bill of entry. Okay, so let's see this notification also. It is called as Bill of Entry Electronic Integrated Declaration and Paperless Processing Regulations of 2018. Nowadays government is promoting paperless transactions, right? So even in GST we have got all the returns which are to be submitted online. So similarly in customs also. Rule 1 is not to be studied. Then definition also, just 1 or 2 definitions, like authorized person means an importer of a person authorized or a person importer or a person authorized by him who has valid license under custom broker licensing regulations of 2013. Means he should be a licensed customs broker. You can appoint him as your authorized person to file bill of entry on your behalf, or other regulations dealing with the similar matters, and it also includes an employee of the custom broker who has been issued a photo identity card in form G under the custom broker licensing regulations of 2013 or any other regulations dealing with similar matter. Means importer himself can file the bill of entry, or authorized person. Who can be the authorized person? The custom broker can be authorized person. You can authorize him to file bill of entry on your behalf, or any of his employees who is also having a valid photo identity. Then bill of entry means electronic integrated declaration accepted and a unique number generated and assigned to that particular bill of entry by the Indian Custom Electronic Data Interchange System, EDI system, and includes its electronic records or printouts. Explanation says, for the purpose of this clause, the electronic record shall have the meaning assigned to it under Information Technology Act of 2000. That is the database basically. Then all the other things are of no use. IceGate, service center. Service center definition is also given. Means a place specified by the principal commissioner or the commissioner, as the case may be, where the data entry of electronic integrated declaration is carried out. So there will be a lot of service centers where entries will be done. Data entry will take place. All simple things. Then G, forget. Then directly come to regulation 3. Here is the main regulation. The authorized person, means importer himself or his agent, shall enter the electronic integrated declaration and the supporting documents himself by affixing his digital signature. You have to sign it by your digital signature and enter them on the custom automated system. And he may also get the electronic integrated declaration made on the customs automated system along with the supporting documents by availing the service of service center. So either you do it directly or you go to a service center and take its help. So there will be a lot of service centers across India who will help the assessees in filing their bill of entry. So either you do it directly or through a service center. Then the authorized person shall file the bill of entry before the end of the very next day. Obviously, this we had seen. Section 46 itself says that you have to file it on the next day after arrival of the ship or the aircraft or the vehicle. So same thing is given here also. And the bill of entry shall be deemed to have been filed and self-assessment completed when after entry of the electronic integrated declaration on the custom automated system or by way of service center, a bill of entry number is generated by ICE, the system. Don't remember the name of the system, Indian Custom Electronic Data Interchange System. You just write system. So once this bill of entry number is generated online, means your compliance is done. You have filed it. For the said declaration, and the self-assessed copy of the bill of entry may be electronically transmitted to the authorized person or printed out at the service center. So if you are filing through the service center, then you can take a printout of it or you can take an email of it, as the case may be. Maybe electronically transmitted means through email or a printout if you have gone to a service center. Then where the bill of entry is not filed, then there was a late fee. So let's see what is the late fee. And the proper officer of custom is satisfied that there was no sufficient cause for such delay, the importer shall be liable to pay charges for late presentation of the bill of entry at the rate of rupees 500 per day for the initial 3 days of the default and at the rate of rupees 10,000 per day for each day of default thereafter. My goodness, heavy penalty. So for the first 3 days of delay, the penalty will be 5,000. Did I say 500 earlier? No, it's 5,000. 5,000 per day, and thereafter 10,000 per day. There may be slip of tongue here and there, so don't worry, follow the book. Okay, sometimes it happens, yeah, slip of tongue happens, and students then start messaging me, sir, you said 500 but in the book it is written as 5,000. I understand, all human beings are susceptible to slip of tongue. Okay, no problem. Then provided that where the proper officer is satisfied with the reasons for delay, if you have good reasons for delay, like you were put in jail, so that is a good reason, because you couldn't have come and filed your bill of entry na, because you are in jail. So that is a good reason. Now the reason for going to jail may be some bad reason, but because you are in jail and therefore you are not able to file bill of entry is a good reason. So it says he may waive off the charges. He may waive off the charges. Okay, very good. So this 5,000, 10,000 per day charges can be waived off. Then the late presentation charges referred to under sub-regulation 3 above in respect of any bill of entry shall not exceed the duty payable in respect of that particular bill of entry. So this is the maximum charges that can go. So 5,000 per day for the first 3 days and then 10,000 per day. It's a heavy charge. So if there is a delay of say 20-30 days, that amount will be huge. But if the duty payable is less than that, then the late charges will be restricted to the duty payable. That's it. provided that where the duty or the other charges in respect of the bill of entry are not payable for any reason like exemption or otherwise, the late presentation charges shall not exceed 50,000 rupees. Now interesting, here it says that the total charges should not exceed the duty payable. But what if the duty payable is nil? If the duty is nil, will the charges be also nil? No. Then it can go up to 50,000 rupees. Then after the completion of the assessment, an order permitting clearance under 47(1) shall be done. So 47(1) is the clearance order for home consumption, and 68 is the warehousing order for warehousing. As the case may be, shall be made after examination of the imported goods. If so required, examination can be required in some cases, so they will do it. And the order under regulation 5 may be recorded on the custom automated system and conveyed electronically to the authorized person, the custodian, and to such other persons designated by the authorized person. That's fine. Your employee, your agent, whoever is there, he will be informed. Then the authorized person shall retain for a period of 5 years from the date of presentation of the bill of entry the assessed copy of the bill of entry. He has to retain it for 5 years, assessed copy of bill of entry, digital or otherwise, and all supporting documents in original which were used or relied upon by him in submitting the electronic integrated declaration, and shall produce them before customs in connection with any action or proceeding under the act or under any other law for the timing in force. So basically what it means is that if any action is taken later on, like audit, like recovery proceedings and all, then these should be available with you as evidence, right? So therefore you have to keep them for a period of 5 years. Then an authenticated copy of the bill of entry may be generated at the request of the authorized person if possession of the copy is required by him for compliance in provisions of law for the timing in force. Authenticated copy of the bill of entry can be given to you in printout, because normally it is electronic, so you don't need a printout. But if you need for some other law, then you can get the printout and get it certified. Then the authorized person who contravenes the provisions of these regulations or fails to comply shall be liable to penalty which may extend to 50,000 rupees. General penalty. So that was 46, the bill of entry. Now comes 47, the payment of duty and clearance order. So it says, where the officer is satisfied that any goods entered for home consumption are not prohibited goods, and the importer has paid the import duty. What is the date of payment? That is given below, but that is the same as filing the bill of entry. That is the next day after arrival, same date. So he has paid the import duty also. Goods are not prohibited, duty has been paid, and charges payable under this act in respect of the same. Any other charges that are payable have been paid. The officer may make an order permitting clearance of the goods for home consumption. Simple. And this order can also be given electronically through customs automated system. And secondly, the provided further that the government may by notification in the official gazette permit certain class of importers to make deferred payment of said duty or any charges in such manner as may be provided by the rules. So we are going to see these rules also regarding deferred payment. And at this point of time, just let me tell you that what happens is that if there is a regular importer and is importing goods every day, so some or the other consignment comes every day, so every day he has to go there and pay the duty. No, so he may be allowed some time to pay, like 15 days. So he can pay for every 15 days together. Like whatever imports are there from 1st to 15th, he will pay consolidated payment. Then from 16th to end of the month, one consolidated payment, and so on. So therefore, that is called as deferred payment. So we'll see the rules for that. Don't worry. Then importer shall pay the import duty. Now see, this is the time for payment. on the date of presentation of the bill of entry in case of self-assessment. So whatever self-assessment we have done on the bill of entry itself under section 17, that much tax we have to pay along with the bill of entry itself. And what is the due date of bill of entry? The next day after arrival. So payment due date will also become the same, that is the day after arrival of the vessel, aircraft, vehicle. So this is for self-assessment. What we have assessed ourselves, we have to pay. Then when we file the bill of entry and the officer makes any changes to it, officer has a right to make changes. So if he makes any changes in our valuation or the rate of duty or whatever and increases the duty payable, then he will make that assessment on the bill and return the bill to us. So that enhanced duty has to be paid on the very next day after the return of the bill of entry to you. So as soon as he will return us the bill of entry with changes in duty payable, we will pay on the very next day. Understood? So that is given here. Within 1 day, excluding holidays, from the day on which the bill of entry is returned to him by the officer for making payment in case of assessment, reassessment. So that is called as assessment, reassessment. When the officer makes assessment, reassessment and changes the duty payable, we will pay it on the very next day after return. Or provisional assessment. Now as you remember, in section 18 we had seen that in case of provisional assessment, the duty cannot be ascertained by us. There is no self-assessment. Hence we have gone for provisional assessment. So then the officer tells us how much you should pay, right? So we will file the bill of entry asking for provisional assessment. We will not pay any self-assessment duty. Then the officer will assess the duty and tell us. So he will return the bill of entry to us mentioning that you should pay provisional duty of 35 lakhs. So then we will pay on the very next day after getting the bill of entry returned to us. Okay. And in case of deferred payment, as I told you, 15 days gap from such due date as may be specified in the rules made in this behalf. So the due dates will be specified in the rules for deferred payment. And then there is interest. If you fail to pay within this time, then you have to pay interest, which can range from 10 to 36%. Government has the power to prescribe the rate of interest ranging from 10 to 36% per annum, but right now they have specified the rate as 15% per annum. And provided that the government may by notification in the official gazette specify the class or classes of importers who shall pay such duty electronically also. So government can specify people who have to pay electronically, and which they have done. So let's see who are covered here. But before that there is a proviso given, and then this compulsory ECS, electronic payment, that this late fee that is there, the interest, so that is given there, that board if satisfied, the board may, board means the CBIC, that it is necessary in public interest so to do, it may by order for reasons to be recorded, waive the whole or part of any interest payable under this section. So the interest that we are paying 15% per annum can be waived by CBIC, considering the public interest. And then that compulsory ECS payment. So it says the government has specified the following classes of importers who shall pay customs duty electronically. Importers registered under accredited clients program. So this is a special registration program of the government for regular importers. So if you are registered there under the accredited clients program, then you have to pay your tax electronically. Or even if you are not registered there, if you are one-off importer, then if the duty is rupees 1 lakh or more per bill of entry, means if you have filed a bill of entry and the duty comes to 1.2 lakhs, you have to pay it electronically. and if the duty is only 26,000, you could have deposited cash. And on making this order, which is popularly known as a pass out customs charge order, means everything, when everything is done, the order will be passed. So the order is called as pass out of customs charge order, or also called as the clearance order. The duplicate copy of the bill of entry is produced to the custodian who delivers the goods to the importer. Simple. And then there is one point given as green channel facility. That's of no use. It's an old concept. Don't just strike it off. Then 51A is given there, payment of duty, interest, penalty, etc. That every deposit, this is again the mode of payment. How do you pay? So first you deposit the amount, right, electronically. So when you deposit the amount with the government, that will be credited to your account, a ledger. So you'll have to open a ledger account and credit, and then you have to adjust that deposit against the liability of the current period. So when you do that, that will be called as payment. So payment will be debit to the ledger account and deposit will be credited to our ledger account. Just like we do it in GST, electronic cash ledger is there. Same concept applies here. Electronic cash ledger concept. So that is 51A. That every deposit made towards duty, interest, penalty, fee, etc., or any other sum payable, or under any other law for the timing in force, or the rules or regulations made thereunder, using authorized mode of payment, shall, subject to such conditions and restrictions, be credited to electronic cash ledger. Now you don't remember anything in between, you just remember every deposit of duty, interest, penalty, fee, or any other sum will be credited to electronic cash ledger of that person, okay, which is maintained in the prescribed manner. And then the amount available in the cash ledger may be used to make any payment towards duty, interest, penalty, fees, or any other sum. Simple. So that is debit. So deposit of money is credited to our electronic cash ledger, and apportioning that balance towards the payment of duty is debit to electronic cash ledger. And the balance in electronic cash ledger, if any, after the payment of duty, interest, so and so, may be refunded in such manner as may be prescribed. If any balance remains, that can be refunded to you, because it's your money. It is not adjusted towards any tax payable, means it is your money, so it will be refunded to you. And notwithstanding anything contained in this section, if the board is satisfied that it is necessary or expedient so to do, it may by notification exempt the deposits made by such class of persons or with respect to such categories of goods as may be specified in the notification from all or any of the provisions of this section. Means if your total duty payable is very less, you will be exempted from having a cash ledger. You just go and deposit money and clear the goods. And then the deferred payment notification is also there. So let's see. In this respect, the central government is permitted importers certified, and who are the importers certified here? Allowed to pay on deferred basis. So it is given here, eligible importer means any class of importers notified under the proviso to subsection 1 to 47. In this regard, the government has permitted importers certified under authorized economic operator program as AEO tier 2 and AEO tier 3 to make deferred payment of import duty. These are the eligible importers. These are very technical words. Just remember them by name. AEO stands for Authorized Economic Operator, certified by DG of Performance Management under CBEC. Baapre. So application means you have to make an application. Then information about intent to avail the benefit. The eligible importer who intends to avail the benefit shall intimate the PC or C, as the case may be, having jurisdiction over the port of clearance, his intention to avail the benefit. So you have to apply. And the PC or C, as the case may be, shall, upon being satisfied with the eligibility of the importer to pay duty under these rules, allow the importer to pay the duty by the due date specified under Rule 5. So what are these due dates? C, given under Rule 5. The eligible importer shall pay the duty by the date specified under excluding holidays for goods corresponding to bill of entry returned for payment from 1st to 15th of the day by 16th of that month. Means whatever bills are returned in between the first 15 days of a month, you will have to pay by 16th. This is for allowing basically to regular importers, facility to regular importers, because every day I am filing some bill of entries. So I need not pay on daily basis. 15 days gap is given to me. So for 1st to 15th, I will pay on 16th. From 16th till the last day of the month, you pay on the 1st of the following month. But in case of March ending, the last, that is 16th to 31st March, you have to pay by 31st March only. Otherwise, you can pay by the first day of the next month. Manner of payment will be electronically, of course. And deferred payment not to apply in certain cases. 7 says that eligible importer who fails to pay duty in full by the due date more than once in a period of 3 consecutive months. Means in 3 months period you make 2 defaults, then this deferred payment will be withdrawn. And it will be shall not be restored until the eligible importer has paid the duty in full along with the interest. Once you pay up the whole amount, the old defaults, you clear everything, then again it will be restored. And exemption in respect of certain goods, nothing contained in these rules shall apply to goods which have not been assessed or not declared by the importer in the entry made under the Act. So if you have not declared them in the entry, bill of entry, then this facility will not be allowed. Then you have to pay as and when the assessment is done. Immediately, that means. Then there is another section 48, procedure in case of goods not cleared, warehouse or tranship within 30 days after unloading. The goods have been unloaded. Normally you have to file the bill of entry on the very next day after arrival of the ship or aircraft, but you don't come. Okay, you don't come, but at least come within 30 days, pay the late fees and clear the goods. But if you don't come even within 30 days, then what will happen? So let's see. It says if any goods brought into India from a place outside India are not cleared for home consumption or warehouse or tranship within 30 days, means you don't do any of the 3 things within 30 days of the date of unloading thereof at a customs station or within such further period as the officer may allow, or if title to any imported goods is relinquished. Second point, title to imported goods is relinquished. We have seen this, section 23. Remember, we relinquished the title. Then such goods may, after notice to the importer, in case of relinquishment, notice will not be given. In case you don't clear within 30 days, the notice will be given, and with the permission of the officer, be sold by the person having custody thereof. Means the custodian will sell off your goods. The port trust authority or the airport trust authority will sell off your goods if you don't come within 30 days, or if you relinquish. In 2 situations, if you don't come for 30 days or if you relinquish, then they will sell off your goods. If you don't come within 30 days, then they can sell after 30 days. But if you relinquish your title, then they can sell immediately thereafter. And in case of 30 days default, first a notice will be sent. A notice has to be sent that you have not come within 30 days. So show cause why your goods should not be sold off. If no reply is filed within so much time, then we will sell off your goods. Provided that in case of animals, perishable goods and hazardous goods, you don't have to wait for 30 days. With the permission of the officer, be sold at any time. So in case of perishable goods, will we wait for 30 days and let the goods perish? No. will sell it off before it perishes. And for arms and ammunition, may be sold at such time and place and in such manner as the government may direct. They cannot be sold by public auction. Arms and ammunition cannot be sold by public auction. They have to be sold in such manner as the government may direct. And the procedure is also given. Section 150 gives the procedure for this sale, and then how the amount will be adjusted. Whatever amount is recovered from sale, how it will be adjusted, that is given in section 150. So 150 says that after notice to the owner, the goods can be sold by public auction or by tender or with the consent of owner in any other manner. If the owner says that don't sell by this, sell in some other manner, then we'll sell in other manner. Otherwise, these are the two normal methods, public auction or tender. Tender means we'll call people to submit their tenders, open the tender, whichever is the highest tender will sell off the goods. Then the proceeds of the sale shall be applied in the following order. First, towards expense of sale. So whatever expense have been incurred in selling, they will be first recovered. Then freight and other charges, if any, to the carrier. If carrier is standing there, his freight has not been paid, pay him the freight. Then duty, the customs duties and all. Then the charges due to the person having custody of goods, custodian's charges. Then payment of any amount due from the owner of goods to the central government under the provisions of this act or any other law for the timing in force. Means old dues, any old due that you may have will be recovered, and then the balance will be given to the owner. And there was a case of Delhi High Court that the right of the warehouse keeper to recover the warehousing charges from the sale proceeds of the goods kept therein is superior to the right of revenue to recover customs duty. Like here it is given now that first the duty will be recovered and then the charges of the custodian. But in case of warehousing, the assessee won the case. Warehousing Corporation won the case, the Associated Container Terminal Limited. They won the case. They said that we should recover the warehousing charges before the department recovers the tax. Good. And then the last section in this is 49. Storage of imported goods in warehouse pending clearance. This is also warehousing without warehousing. So one warehousing without warehousing point is under section 46 itself, that you are unable to file your bill of entry due to lack of information. You can ask the officer to allow the goods to be stored in warehouse without following the warehousing procedure. That was one. This is the second one. So if question comes, what do you mean by warehousing without warehousing? You will mention both section 46 and section 49. So 49 also says that in case of imported goods, whether dutiable or not, entered for home consumption, means you have filed the bill of entry for home consumption. The ACTC of custom is satisfied on the application of the importer that the goods cannot be cleared within reasonable time. You have filed the bill of entry, but there is some other problem and they cannot be cleared within a reasonable time. Means we are unable to clear within a short time. Even the duties are assessed, but we are unable to pay, for example. We don't have money to pay. So we'll ask, please give us 20 days time to pay. Allow us to deposit goods in warehouse till that time. Or in case of imported dutiable goods entered for warehousing, the AC or DC of customs satisfied that the application of importer that the goods cannot be removed for deposit in a warehouse within a reasonable time. Means the normal warehousing cannot be done. We have submitted the bill of entry for warehousing, but suppose we are unable to file a bond. So unless we file a bond, the goods cannot go into the warehouse. So the procedure of warehousing is still incomplete. Please allow us to store the goods in warehouse temporarily till we submit the bond and fulfill all the other obligations. Okay. Then the goods may, pending clearance or removal as the case may be permitted to be stored in public warehouse for a period not exceeding 30 days. So 30 days will be given to you. This is temporary storage. Okay. So one is for home consumption, one is for warehousing. In both, if removal cannot be done or the procedure of warehousing cannot be completed, You may be allowed to store goods in warehouse for temporary period of 30 days. Provided that the provisions of Chapter 9 shall not apply to goods permitted. Chapter 9 means the normal warehousing procedure. So the whole warehousing procedure chapter will not apply here. Therefore, it is called as warehousing without warehousing. And provided further that PC or C may extend the period of storage for a further period not exceeding 30 days at a time. Means it can be, original is 30 plus it can be 30 plus another 30 plus another 30, and the sequence will go on. Okay. And then this table is given, warehousing without warehousing. So 46 1 is there, 49 is there that we just saw, and there is section 85 also, that is applicable to stores. Stores which are imported into India for being supplied to foreign going vessels or aircrafts can be allowed to be put in warehouse without following the warehousing procedure. No bond, nothing. They can just be put in the warehouse. That we'll see later on, section 85. Okay, so just go through this table once. Right, so here we'll take a break and then we'll continue with the export procedure in the next lecture.